Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about seed starting and how I start my seeds. But since it was such a great day outside, I thought I would bring you along and show you a little bit of what we've done to expand the garden. We still have a lot more work to do. We plan on adding an additional 19 raised beds to our area, but I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like so far and then explain what we plan to do for this year's garden. So these are the raised beds that we built last year. We have 4 of them, and they're connected in the middle. This one has a work table with our water catchment system underneath, and it has an arched trellis above, which I still need to get out here and clean these off. Now that the weather is a little bit nicer and I don't have to worry about killing my pollinators, I'll go ahead and get that done. So this one had the table, and it's got a place for some gardening tools here on the side and a little painting that I did last year. And then this set also has the arched trellis. I grew morning glories on them last year. And then this one has a bench to sit on. Now when we built these raised beds, we built them thinking we were only going to use them for one season, but we ended up not getting everything done with our land like we thought we would, so we will have to use them again this year. So when we built the original raised beds that we have, the 4 that we built last year, we built them with the intention of only using them for one season. We had planned on getting our land ready and moving out to the property and having a bigger garden, but you know, with COVID and a bunch of other things that changed, that didn't happen. So this year I'm going to have to garden at our rental property again, which is fine, but I will have to build more raised beds in order to do that to the scale that I want to this year. Since I am running a CSA program, I will need to expand quite a bit. But I'm excited about that, and I'm getting started on it, and hopefully we'll be done here in the next month or so and be ready well in advance of planting time. And being of the mindset that I was only going to use this property for gardening 1 year, I didn't put a lot of work into my soil last year. I didn't really put a whole lot of work into these beds. But this year I'm going to focus a little bit more on amending the soil, making sure I have good quality soil in the beds, not just dirt, and making sure that everything is set up for a very good garden this year. I didn't do it last year. Like I said, I wasn't planning on using those beds for more than one season, so I just didn't see the point in investing. But this year I'm running a CSA, and I really need to make sure that everything is as productive as possible. Once I get my dirt and compost ordered, I will show you guys how I'm amending the soil and what additives I'm putting in. I'm doing everything organic, but I am going to be doing quite a bit to ensure that the soil is at an optimal health level for my plants. And I also only built 4 of these beds last year because I didn't want to invest a lot in raised beds because I didn't think I was going to be at this property for very long. And I don't think I'll be at this property past this garden season, but I'm going to go ahead and do the raised beds for my CSA program because I don't want to not run my CSA program just because I'm still living at a rental property. This is something that I have wanted to do for a while and I'm really excited about. So I'm just going to go ahead and invest, and then whenever I do end up moving, I'll just deconstruct the beds and take the wood material with me. So this is what one of the beds looks like. It's just made out of reclaimed wood that we already had on hand. And excuse the mess in the yard, we're in a little bit of a cleanup situation here. But this is just a 4-foot by 16-foot bed, as well as this one over here. And they will go all the way back to those back 2 trees there. One of the things I wanted to talk about when you're thinking about starting seeds is where are you getting your seeds from? So there's a couple of schools of thought on where you should get your seeds, whether it be from a big box store such as Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or if you go to a seed company like Johnny's or Baker Creek. And does it matter? Well, to be honest, I don't think it necessarily matters. It depends on exactly what you're going for. I don't necessarily think the seed quality is that much less at a box store than it is at a seed-specific company. But here's why I choose the companies that I choose. Pros of using a box store like Walmart or Lowe's, Home Depot, just convenience. It's in your town. You can just run up there really quick, grab what they have, and be headed home and starting seeds in that same day. You don't have to order them online and wait for them to be shipped. A con to a big box store, or a reason why you might not want to use a big box store, is they are very limited in their variety. So if you're wanting to do a massive garden with every type of vegetable or even multiple varieties of each vegetable, a box store might not be the best option for you to purchase your seeds from. Now, some pros for purchasing from a seed-specific company such as Johnny's, Haas, Baker Creek. There's all kinds of companies out there, but those are the three that come to mind when I think about seed shopping, would be the huge variety of seeds that they have. They'll have 6 or 7 different varieties of a certain summer squash that you like. So if you're really into growing things that you might not be able to purchase in a grocery store, then you'd find those most likely at a seed-specific company. Con for purchasing from a seed-specific company is the time that you have to wait for shipping. Sometimes they can be out of stock by the time you place your order, and so you'll miss out on certain varieties. And then sometimes they might be shutting their site down because there's so many people ordering at once that they can't keep up, and they want to make sure they give the best quality customer care, so they shut the site down until the orders are caught up, and then they'll put it back on. We did experience that this year with a couple of seed companies. So, you know, while that site is shut down, you're not able to place an order, whereas you can always just hop into Home Depot or Walmart or wherever box store you have in your town. So that would be a con for a seed-specific company. Over the past 6 or 7 years, I've purchased from several different companies for seeds. I have used box store seeds and not had a problem with them, but I have 3 main companies that I really like to purchase from. First company that I purchase a lot of my seeds from, and in fact last year my garden was all grown from seeds from this company, would be Haas. And I was actually introduced to this company by one of the YouTube channels that I watch, Cog Hill Farms. Jason is a huge advocate for Haas tool seeds. He has every reason to be. They're an amazing company. Their germination rate is terrific. Close to 100%. I've never had an issue with germinating any of my Haas seeds. I've also not really had issues with disease, which could be partially because of how I manage my plants, but I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they save their seeds and just the health of the overall plant. So Haas is an amazing company. One of the things I really truly love about Haas is how great their customer care is. I have not waited more than a week for my orders since I've ordered from them. This year I even posted online after I received my order just a picture of my seeds and how excited I was, and the owner of the company, Travis, he actually sent me a reply on Instagram and said, you know, thank you so much for supporting us. And I think that that's really great. They're a family-owned company. They truly love what they do. They put a lot of work into it, truly passionate about it. They also have a YouTube channel, Row by Row Garden Show, where they teach a lot about the different varieties that they grow, and I love watching their channel and learning from them. So Haas is probably my #1 seed company, just for those reasons. Another company that I really love to buy seeds from is Johnny's Seeds. And the reason I love Johnny's is because I can buy in bulk. And buying in bulk for certain things like carrots and beets and green beans is really important to me, especially with running a CSA program. So Johnny's is my go-to company for buying in bulk. I've also never had a problem with shipping for them. It doesn't take very long. I've never had shipping delays with any of my orders from them. Great customer care with that company as well. And then the third company that I always order at least 2 or 3 seed packets from every year is Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Now, the #1 reason that I love this company is they are just a really fun company. You're going to get a ton of varieties with them that you won't see anywhere else. But they're also a Missouri-owned company. They're located in Mansfield, Missouri, and being a Missouri girl, I love to support local. So anything that I can do to support a Missouri company like Baker Creek that I know and I trust and I enjoy their product, I'm going to do that. So every year I order at least a couple varieties from them. So this is where I've got all of my seeds set up that I have started already, which I haven't started a whole lot of seeds yet. You'll see I've got a couple of empty shelves down here with mats ready to go when I start more. But right now I have all of my herbs up here. I've got some onions started in these containers, and then in between these two trays in Ziplocs, I have my peppers started. So let me take these trays out and show you a little bit of what I've got going on. So in here, I've got my herbs started. I don't have humidity domes for all of my trays. I only have one. So one thing that I've learned over the years is that you can use Saran wrap, and it works really well to keep some of that moisture in there. So I've just placed a couple of sheets of Saran wrap over top. Now these were sitting directly on the tray when I first started these seeds. But now that I have, you'll see I've got some basil starting to pop up here. I don't want them inhibiting the growth, so I've added a few more markers just to kind of hold the Saran wrap up a little bit. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this tray is because it is time for me to water again, and I wanted to show you, you'll start to see the top starting to dry out. You don't want that. You want to keep this tray very, very moist. So I do bottom water. So there's a little bit of water in there, but part of the issue is these trays don't sit that great in there. So the edges are not getting as much water. So I've been very diligent about watering this multiple times a day and coming in with my mister and hitting these spots that are drying out faster to make sure that they have enough and they don't dry out and that these seeds have a chance of germinating. It's very important when you're starting your seeds to keep the humidity and keep the moisture in to give them a good enough chance to germinate. So I've got that misted, and I'm just going to place my Saran wrap back on the top. I'm going to put this back on the heat mat. So I have my heat mats on 24/7, but I have my lights scheduled to turn on between the hours 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. And the reason for that is because, as you'll see over here, my seeds are bio window. So during the day, they're getting a little bit of that indirect light, but at night is really when I'm trying to force a little bit more light on them. So that's why I've got my lights on a timer for that. You could leave your lights on 24/7. It's not gonna necessarily hurt them, I don't think. But this is what I've had success with doing. I have only started seeds for, I think this is my third season starting seeds. So I'm not exactly an expert on seed starting, but this is what I do based on what I've learned over the past couple of years and what has worked for me. Now, another thing that I do that a lot of gardeners would say you probably shouldn't do is I do not use a seed starting mix. The reason I don't use a seed starting mix is because I think it is ridiculously overpriced, and I try to keep everything as frugal as I can. So I use just a regular potting mix. I also don't want any fertilizers or any sort of additive in it. I just want a plain potting mix. Now, the reason that a lot of gardeners would say not to use potting mix is because they don't want those additives. They don't want fertilizer in it for the seedlings. And also, potting mixes are notorious for having wood chips in them. And that's not necessarily the best thing for your seedlings, just because it could inhibit the sprouts from coming up. And I agree with all that, but for the dramatic cost difference, I've never seen an issue with it, so I keep using potting mix. It works for me every time. I've never had an issue with my seedlings not germinating or not sprouting in potting mix. But one thing that I do to my potting mix is I put it in a big bucket and I pour boiling water on it to sterilize it. I think that that is critical. I think if you don't do that, you could have some issues. So these are just some bunching onions and some slicing onions that I started the other day. They have not yet sprouted, but I can see, I don't know if you can, probably not, but right in here, they're starting to just a little bit. But what I wanted to show you in this tray is between the top and the bottom tray, I have all of my peppers. And my peppers, I start in paper towels, and then I put them in Ziploc bags, and I have them all labeled. And I put them in between two trays, and I put them on a heat mat, and I let them stay here until I see that the seeds have sprouted, which peppers are finicky and they take a while. So none of these have sprouted yet, but I'll leave them in here and I'll check them daily to make sure that these haven't dried out and that there's plenty of moisture in there. The biggest thing with peppers is to just make sure that they're kept warm, because if you don't keep them warm, you're not gonna have nearly as good of germination, if any germination at all. Last year, when I tried to start my peppers, I started them directly in soil, and I had about a 50-50 germ rate on them. And so I reached out to a couple of Facebook groups that I was in and asked what other people do with their peppers, and they reached out, or they answered me back and said that the Ziploc and paper towel method is the best that they have found, and then also to keep them on heat. And so I started another round of peppers last year after my ones that I started in soil didn't work out so well, and I did the new round with the paper towel method, and almost every single seed germinated. I would say I probably had 98 to 99% germination rate on them. So I will always do the paper towel method for my peppers moving forward. One thing that's important to mention, especially for those of you that are new to starting seeds, is to make sure that you have the room to move all of your seedlings to larger pots if needed. The first year I started seeds, I started a ton of seeds and did not have the space, and ended up losing some of my seedlings because of overcrowding. So make sure you have plenty of space wherever you're starting your seeds so that when they're ready to up pot, you have room to do so. This is the primary shelf that I'm using, primary shelving unit that I'm using to start my seeds. And as you'll see, they're spaced differently as they go down. This one is super close because I want it super close to the light when I very first start them. And then as we go down, they're a little bit further away because as the plants grow up, I'll be moving them just slightly further away from the light. But why it's so important when they're first starting to be super close to the light is so that you don't end up with leggy plants. And leggy plants, it basically just means that the plant is reaching so far for the light that their stem grows too quickly and isn't as strong as it should be. So keep them close to the light and that will help reduce that. Another thing that I've done over the years is I'll use an oscillating fan in this area once my seedlings are up and out of the soil and then fully sprouted, because this puts a little bit of movement in the air and causes your plants to be stronger, and they'll be stronger, healthier plants for when you're ready to transplant outside. They'll be a little bit more used to the elements. Now, I also am very good about hardening off my seeds when it's time, but I'll do a separate video on that once I'm ready to harden them off. And when I'm talking about having additional space, which ignore my mess, I'm getting in the mode of organizing and I just haven't finished cleaning it all up. What I mean by having plenty of room for starting all your seeds is I have this entire shelving unit that is going to be for when I up pot. So I'll get all of this cleaned up as I continue starting more seeds. And then this shelving unit will be used specifically for the larger seedlings. I hope that this video helped you out a little bit. I don't necessarily intend for this video to be a how to seed start video, but this is just what I'm doing and what I've started so far. Like I said, this is only my 3rd year starting seeds at all by myself, so I don't consider myself to be an expert. I'm sure that I'm doing things that other gardeners would cringe at, but it works for me. So that's what I'm doing. If you have tips or tricks that have worked really well for you, I would love to hear about them. Please drop me a comment below. Always love hearing what other gardeners are doing because it helps me to grow in my garden as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw in this video. I wanted to share it with you guys, give you a couple of other options. There's so many videos out there telling you don't do this and don't do this. And you know, I just kind of am of the mindset of I'm gonna do it and see if it works for me, and most of the time it does. If it doesn't, then okay, I learned myself that it doesn't. But I'm a little bit hard-headed that way, and that I've got to see it for myself before I really believe it. So for those of you who are thinking that seed starting mix is too expensive for you, so you can't start seeds, there is other alternatives. They may not be the recommended or the ideal, but you can still start seeds, and you can do it incredibly frugally from your own house. I'm doing it in my kitchen, in my dining room. I'm all about frugal when it comes to gardening. Well, really in general, I'm just very frugal, or at least I try to be. And so one of the things I do is I save containers like this. This was a chocolate chip muffin container from the grocery store, and it would make a great seed starting vessel. It's got a humidity dome already attached to it. It closes. You could poke a couple holes in here for ventilation if you needed to. You could poke a couple holes in the bottom for bottom watering. I mean, there's so many things that you could do with this, but keep stuff like this in mind for when you're starting seeds, because it really is a great option. Another thing that I've done for up potting is I've used solo cups. These are some cups that I saved from last year that I've washed out, and I'll use them again this year. All I do is I drill a hole in the bottom, which, get one out so you can see. I just drill a hole in the bottom, and that way I can set it down in a tray for bottom watering, and it works great. Another thing I do is sometimes I buy flowers from a local nursery, and I'll keep the plastic containers that they give me. So all of these are great options for those of you who are on a budget and just really trying to keep it frugal, but you want to start a garden. I highly recommend saving all of your plastic containers, solo cups, everything like that. As always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and please hit the bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload a video, and we'll see you in the next video.